As he launches this car and is going way too fast on a public road, he ends up discharging the pocketed firearm. And yes, as you would well imagine, due to the nature of its placement, the projectile penetrated his penis. Whenever I meet up with our viewers and fans at car events or shows or just at the airport or at lunch, one of the first questions that tends to come up is people asking, are there any VINwiki car stories that you just couldn't run? And of course, in 7 years of making content and more than 2,500 stories, yes, there are a lot of them. And generally that happens either because the way that it was told just wasn't very good, or in most cases, the damage that's possible to one of the characters in the story vastly outweighs the value of the entertainment or the value of the video that we could ever derive, and sometimes it just wouldn't work well for YouTube based on the fact that sometimes the dislike ratios, can really impact the performance of a video and the subsequent videos that run on the channel. And I thought today maybe I could repackage some of them to change the details, to protect the guilty, and at least allow you guys to experience some of these ridiculous car stories that I found to just be totally wild, but we couldn't run for a variety of reasons. But another thing that I'm really excited to finally be able to talk about this month is our partnership with Bridgestone. Bridgestone tires are some of the best in the industry. I've used a lot of their Bridgestone Potenza and Firestone off-road products in our cars over the years. And so throughout the year, you're going to see a lot of content from Bridgestone and from us, testing tires, talking about their history, and talking about some of the amazing things that they're doing as a brand. So check out the link in the description below to see the entire Potenza range of tires for supercars, sports cars, hypercars, anything that you want. Road use, track use, all-season use, they are amazing, and I love them on my cars. But today I'm excited to share some of these stories that we weren't able to tell before. Now this first story is about a Texas supercar owner that had kind of the whole series of McLarens, and one of his favorite things to do was to modify these cars, get 1,000, 1,200, 1,400 horsepower, and then take them to these half-mile and mile events. And it was being told not by this person, but by one of his best car friends. We build these relationships a lot of times about events, and so that was sort of their thing to do together. They lived close by, and so they would hang out for, meals and drinks and things like that, but most of what they did together was going on trips to trailering the car out and doing these half-mile or whatever standing events. And the cars would go 200 miles an hour plus, and it was a big thing for them to do and chase with all the modified McLaren culture, which is a fast-growing thing. Now, when he had upgraded from his 675 LT to his 765 LT, the 675 had the comfort seats, and the 765 had the Senna seats, the one-piece carbon buckets, and that's going to become very important later on in the story. Now, in addition to loving McLarens and going fast, this, we'd say happily married man and the owner of these cars also had an appetite for professional companionship. And sometimes when he would be driving his cars around, testing, tuning, doing all this stuff, he would be doing so in a manner to impress some hired co-drivers. Now, the guy's primary business was actually in the manufacture of tracksuits. So, jackets, whatever, like Adidas looking things, but not Adidas. They were imported from China or wherever they were. And that was his business, to kind of like white label them and sell them. And he made good money doing so. And so he would always be wearing this kind of athleisure wear, but he also had a penchant for firearms. And so at one point, as he was carrying around his firearm in his pocket, and he was in the Senna seat of his 765 LT with someone in the passenger seat who was not his wife, and he was trying to impress her with the car's performance. Now, you might see where this is going, but as he launches this car and is going way too fast on a public road, he ends up discharging the pocketed firearm. And yes, as you would well imagine, due to the nature of its placement, the projectile penetrated his penis. And so he had shot himself in a very painful area and needed hospital attention. But of course, he could not do so with this passenger, not next of kin or whomever he might show up in an emergency room with. He immediately left her at a bus stop and called this friend that used to join him for all these car events and said, I need you to get to the hospital and meet me because I've got to tell my wife, who will obviously be notified of this incident and see the aftermath later. I need you to say that you were in the passenger seat of my car. And so he makes it there. He's quite injured, but he is eventually, I suppose, repaired, or at least as much as one can be, given the nature of the accident. And all of the blame for this kind of escapade or exhibition of speed was placed on the friend. And the wife, the real wife, was, of course, very, very upset that this could possibly happen, and especially at the, behest and encouragement of this terrible friend. And so she had to lay the law down and say that they were never allowed to hang out again. And in order to protect his, other hobbies, the car owner was okay with this. So that incident is what severed the friendship, or at least when they could hang out in public, they still got together periodically. But it was one of those things like, how do you package a title and thumbnail with that premise? The next one was a car that I was honestly trying very, very hard to buy. And I had kind of heard a little bit about this car because we had seen it on VINwiki with a very, very strange circumstance. And it was posted as a 2005 Mercedes SL55 AMG with a normal US VIN and a salvage title. However, the car was obviously not an SL55. It was a Mercedes McLaren SLR, a car that I love. I obviously had the Paris Hilton SLR, and I really enjoyed having it. It's one of those few cars that I got rid of and do very much miss. And so I'm always looking for another one, and this one eventually popped up for sale. Now again, it was very clearly by chassis, everything, interior, engine, it was an SLR, but it absolutely had a tag that came back to an SL55, and I had pictures through the VINwiki app of the door jamb VIN and the dash VIN of a proper SL55. I just couldn't really wrap my head around exactly how the VIN swap would have occurred, and of course I didn't really know the VIN of the SLR donor, shall we say. Now, when the car became for sale, it was being offered through a broker, and there was a little bit of the narrative of the car kind of, offered. And of course, it was a salvage rebuild where they had used the entirety of an SLR to fix the SL55. But the story of the SLR is what was so interesting. So the car was owned by an African warlord. It was a guy who had insane amounts of money and control in a very difficult part of Africa where obviously there was no insurance and things like that. And at some point, this guy had been driving the car very aggressively through some village, and he drove it through a fruit stand. It damaged the car a lot all over, but the individual pieces of damage, because it wasn't that hard of a thing that he'd hit. And fortunately, I was told there was no loss of life related to that, although the loss of life related to his other activities was rather profound. And so the car had been sold in pieces. It had been totally disassembled in Africa, and it was sold into the United States by this person. Now, this guy was well known in the parts and accessories and tuning world of Mercedes cars. And so he was the right, guy, I don't know, it's the right person to do this. When the broker was offering me the car, he mentioned several times that she wanted to sell the car. The person that he was representing as the owner of this car was a female person. It got a little bit weird because I was eventually given this person's name. I found them on LinkedIn. I saw some pictures. I saw the old pictures of the person, and I noticed through the Carfax that the car had never changed its title in the time that they had owned it. And I'm being delicate here, but ultimately what I learned and what became rather clear is that the person who had imported the parts, repaired the SL55, owned the Mercedes business, had transitioned from male to female and was a trans person. And that becomes a layer of comedy when you think about the fact that this was also a Mercedes McLaren SLR identifying as a US salvage title SL55 AMG. And the awkward similarities would sort of layer because, I knew people that were walking up to this car at car shows for years, and they were peering inside. And even if you kind of believe maybe it was a rebodied SL or something like that, when you look at the center console, the shifter is not what you would expect when you see something that has an SL55 VIN. And so the normal protruding appendage, let's say, out of the center console was wildly different on a real SLR than it would have been on an SL55. Ultimately, it was just a little bit too much for what it was. It was a cheap for an SLR, but way too much for an SL55, obviously, and just a really, really hard thing to get away with. And one of those circumstances when, in a VIN swap, you really have to be super careful about who might find out. And it was honestly ridiculous that they were advertising it in this way. But I mean, the transatlantic African warlord SLR identifying as an SL55 from a man who was identifying as a woman. It just, to me, it was amazing, but it was one of those that I just didn't feel like I could make sense of financially, and that would probably fly here, and I guess we'll find out in the comments. The final one was actually a companion of a storyteller, and these were a couple of guys out of the Pacific Northwest, and they were in town to tell some stories. The main guy was going to tell some stories, and as he kind of watched his friend tell stories, and this was years ago, we were still at the VINwiki warehouse recording, and he said that, I've got a story. I crashed 3 rental cars in the course of a month, and it was all hitting animals. That was his immediate recollection. I was like, well, that's pretty crazy. Sure, why not? We've got some time. Sit down and tell him. Now, I was aware generally of who this guy was. I'd known him, very, very casually for several years at that point, and I very well knew that he had struggled, shall we say, with sobriety. And I guess at the time of this story was sort of the depths of his struggle in that regard. And so I knew that that was probably going to come into play, and to be honest, it really came into play in the way that he was telling these stories. Now, I'm not, trying to get anyone in trouble or present someone in their worst possible form, and that's the primary reason why we couldn't do this. But I have to say that, the way that the story was told was just preposterous. The first one, and this was actually him talking about a time when he was in Northern California around an area where there were a lot of fruit trees, and he was there for some automotive events, and he was renting cars, going back and forth, and he just kept crashing them into animals, he said. Well, so the first one was predictably a deer. He hit a deer in, I think, a rented Impala or something like that, and it was late at night, and he wasn't fully with it, and so he wasn't exactly aware of the extent of the damage, but it was rather severe, and so he drove it to wherever he was spending the night, woke up the next morning to realize, wow, that was a lot worse, and he ended up calling the rental company, and they ended up sending a flatbed with another vehicle, and I think it was another Impala or, I don't know, Malibu or whatever it was, and they swapped it out, and he drove that car, and he said then he was driving along, I think he said 2 days later, and he's like, and it happened again. He's like, I was driving by this rest area, and then it sort of like hit him that there was a little bit of a horrifying wrinkle in this. And apparently, as he was driving by a highway rest area where you'd have some restrooms and a parking lot and kind of a field or area where you could maybe let your dog out, he hit an animal, and it was a rather large dog. It was a golden retriever that had gotten off the leash of its family. It had been cooped up in a car and went out for a run, jumped onto the highway, and without knowing it, he demolishes this thing in front of the 2 children that had owned this dog. Now, again, that's a horrifying thing to think about, but the fact that even as he told the story, the fact that he was still kind of wrapping his head around exactly what had happened was just, it was hard to watch, but also just like, you kind of watch the layers of the onion peel back in his own head, and it was nuts. And I was like, well, I can't imagine where it's going to go from here. And then he came to the third incident, which I guess was about a week after that, and he said, oh, I should say it was not all animals, which of course puts us on the edge of our seat like, wait a minute, what is he going to say? And so apparently, in this area where there were a lot of fruit trees and, migratory workers, there were some people that were illegal, undocumented, whatever the case may be. At one point, he'd been driving along on a very large multi-lane highway, and traffic had stopped far ahead for some kind of accident or congestion or whatever. And I guess he just didn't realize that the traffic had stopped. And in his state, he just, at full speed, no braking, ran into a very old truck that was full of several of these fruit-picking migrant workers. And none of them spoke English, but as he sort of came to and got out of the car, he realized that the impact had flipped this truck over and that they were very, very mad at him. He didn't know what they were saying, and he was really struggling to work with them. I guess law enforcement arrived pretty quickly on the scene because they were in the area for whatever was causing the congestion. But at the end of the day, they didn't really know like exactly how it had happened or what was going on. And these guys were, totally undocumented, no ID, no anything like that. But he kept going back to how much they were yelling at him, and they were so mad. But they were all very clearly alive in this situation. He said, well, the main guy, the driver, had lost a finger. And that's what he was most upset about. And so I don't know if he had his hand on the edge, Shia LaBeouf style, or whatever happened, but he ends up having a finger severed, and they're out looking through this congested highway trying to find this guy's finger so that he would calm down. And I guess in the moment, this guy that I was telling the story was able to sort of feign sobriety enough to not get into a lot of trouble beyond kind of a your insurance is going to have to fix yours, their insurance is going to have to fix his, and he was not ticketed as at fault in this incident. And once again, he had to get this car back to the rental car company, and I guess at that point they just threw up their hands. They said, we're not giving you any more cars to rent. And I guess he had to Uber the rest of his time out there. And so again, it was one of those things that was just like, holy cow, the way this guy told it, how dilated his eyes were, the fact that he was remembering very selectively what was happening. We actually edited the story, I did, because there was still a point when I edited all the videos, and there were so many jump cuts that I never could have found enough photos and things to cover them and make it look coherent. But I showed it to several of our people in our circle, and he actually asked for the video later just to see how bad he looked, because fortunately he had overcome the addiction issues and he was in a much better place just a few short years later. But it was a wild one, they all were, and there's plenty more, but I figured today I would just share those three with you. And again, not all those details are exactly as they happened, but I hope you get the idea. Once again, I want to thank Bridgestone for their support of VINwiki this month, for their support of the channel, and all they're going to do with us throughout the year. We're going to test some tires, use some tires, and have them talk about what the tire business is like from their perspective and all the great things that Bridgestone is doing as a brand, including becoming an OEM offering on cars like Porsches, Lamborghinis, and things like that in the past couple of years. And so I know that you're going to love that, but I know that you'll also love their tires. And so whether you go to Tire Rack and order a set of Bridgestones for your car, or also check them out at the link in the description below, check out the Potenza range of tires for road cars, supercars, sports cars, hypercars. They are amazing, and I know they'll treat you well. Have a great day.